Hey guys, today I wanted to talk to you about how to set up an overhead webcam with a top-down view for the purposes of Skype piano lessons. I'm making this video because I've received a number of requests through email and comments and whatnot about how exactly I set mine up. So before I explain how to set it up, I did want to mention that I feel a side profile webcam is a more essential camera for if you have to choose one camera. However, if you want to invest in a second camera and you're using something like Skype, or a client that can change cameras, then the top-down view is totally the way to go. This setup really only involves three basic parts: a stand, an adapter, and the webcam itself. For my top-down views, I'm using a Logitech C920. The C920 makes a great top-down camera because it is inexpensive and it provides a clear, reasonably color-balanced 1080p image. So with that said, I'm going to show you a little bit of what the keyboard shot actually looks like. This is what the top-down view looks like in action, and as you can see, it's evenly lit and spans the full range of the keyboard minus the last two notes. The top B and C I do have out of shot just because of how the view actually ended up laying out. I find this view particularly useful when I am demonstrating something with a lot of hand crossing or something that is complicated and difficult to see from the side perspective. So one example that I can think of is one of the later parts in the piece Reverie by Debussy. And I'll play a little bit of that now. As you can see, it's pretty handy. The first thing that you'll need for your overhead webcam setup is a small but sturdy stand that can sit at the top of the piano and basically position your camera directly over the keyboard. I used to have stands that would sit behind me, like right over here, and it'd come up and then over and look down that way, but I just found that it was really clunky, and if you have pets or anything, it's just a recipe for disaster, so I don't recommend that. I recommend putting your stand on top of the piano. You can use this stand in a variety of configurations, regardless of how short or tall your piano is. The only thing that it probably won't work for is if you're using a grand piano. If you're using a grand piano, you probably will need a stand that sits on the floor next to the piano that goes over. But if you're using an upright, I think that this will work. This is a Yamaha U1 48-inch upright piano, which is pretty tall as far as pianos go. Although they could be taller, but most of the pianos that I find in students' homes are not even as tall as this. That being said, the stand sits right here. As you can see, you always see the base in many of my videos. And then it goes up out of shot and comes over once again out of shot, and then the camera is just right over here. So I generally try to keep my mics and cameras and whatnot out of the shot because I want a very clean, professional look, and this stand allows me to do that pretty well. But you will definitely have to keep the webcam several feet above the keyboard. So this is probably at least 3 or 4 feet above the keyboard, and you'll need a stand that can actually extend that height, especially if you have a short piano. But it can be done, and I highly recommend this Samson stand that I mentioned earlier. The next thing you'll need in your configuration is an adapter to allow the 5/8 thread of the mic stand to connect to the 1/4 thread on the webcam. The adapter I use not only does that, but also features a ball head, which actually solves another problem, which is that the camera will be in the correct orientation because of the ball head, where I'm able to actually reverse the camera. If you were to use some kind of adapter that basically directly connected the camera and let it point straight down, it would be looking at the piano upside down, which is not useful at all. This adapter allows you to turn the camera around and face the piano in the right orientation with no software adjustments or anything. It's a great solution for students and teachers to get the right top-down view. The last thing you need for your setup is a decent webcam. The camera I use for my overhead shots is a Logitech C920, but you could also use a C922, or you can even use a Brio if you wanted to get fancy. Although I really think the C920 is the most that you need. This camera is pretty inexpensive. You can get it on Amazon still, and it's been a very stable sort of workhorse in my setup. One last thing you need to consider is how you're going to light your shot. The reason you need to think about this is that most webcams will increase the gain or lower the frame rate to compensate for poor lighting situations, which will make the motion jittery or very grainy and generally unpleasant. I highly recommend using something like an overhead piano lamp, or you can do something in the ceiling or something that's nearby. Try to get the exposure very even on the piano where you can see all the cracks in the keys all the way across. As you can see, this setup is not complicated and it's also not expensive. It cost me about $100, which is, as it turns out, about the best $100 I've spent because it led to this online income, which I greatly appreciate. If you guys are interested in seeing other aspects of how I set this configuration up, please let me know in the comments below. And if you like videos like this, if you want to see more, please remember to subscribe and actually hit like. Thanks for watching. Bye.